stars, now a faint refrain. Coffee brews and thoughts collide in this early morning ride. Wake up world, let's start the day. Insight flows in a bright array. Questions dance like morning dew. In this space, it's me and you. Coffee chats with Melissa. Every cup is a whisper. Conversations open doors, spilling thoughts forevermore. Ideas bubble crisp and bright. Words take flight in morning light. Consult the heart, make it sing. New perspectives on each wing. Every thought becomes so clear. From stations and bubbling streams, waking up to brand new dreams. Coffee chats with Melissa. Every cup was a whisper. Conversation.
Well, I mean, good morning. Hello, guys. It's Saturday. What the heck? I have so much excitement left over from last night's event. If you have not checked it out, go check out Erin Gibson's Soul Man Life. I was there. I was a guest. Probably had about 4 hours of sleep after celebrations of Valentine, doing some dinner after the event with the husband, the loved one, the one I said I was going to go out and spend some time with. And this morning, guys, I'm going to try really hard to stay focused on what's happening in front of me on the screen, but I have this thing shining at me, this little glimmer of shiny, pretty, fun stuff on my finger. My husband and I upgraded my wedding ring last night, my something. And so I'm sitting here looking at the culmination of every ring he's ever given me in one unit. So I'm really excited because I have this sparkly little ring blinging at me while we're doing this today. So forgive me if I'm a little distracted as we get started. It is only 6:05 a.m. here on the Pacific Northwest. And so welcome, right? Let's get going. Let's wake up a bit. I am going to do a slow roll because I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous to read my book. My chapter, right? I'm in a book with a bunch of co-authors, and we're going to be Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I've been talking to myself. I did it again. Can you hear me now? I was literally, okay, so I was excusing myself for being distracted this morning because I have a new ring. My husband gave me a ring yesterday, and I got distracted. I was telling you guys it's like this upgraded culmination of every ring I've ever been gifted. And it's just really sweet. It's really cute. I was distracted by it and I forgot to unmute. So hey, is that just me? It says Nick lost audio. Did you have me before? See, I don't know. Anyway, welcome guys, welcome. So I'm going to be reading this book today. And I'm a little nervous, not gonna lie. Okay, so beyond the sparkly ring that I'm really excited to be wearing, and it was really nice to do dinner with the husband after the event of Soul Man Live last night. And um, I don't know. It was just an amazing evening, right? So great show. Go check it out if you weren't there. Left here, went to go have a dinner with my husband. Went to this really cool restaurant. Can I give him a shout out real quick? It is Sliced here in Bellingham. Um, and I've been wanting to go. My husband had mentioned this pizza spot, and I was like, okay, but pizza, really, when I say night out, I don't really think pizza first. And I don't know if you guys do, but I was like, okay, but it's Valentine's Day, and I want to surprise him with something he wants to do. Let's do it. And we show up there. And when we got there, I was shocked because we started looking over this menu, and it's got some pretty high-end options there. It's not just pizza, right? So I actually told the owner who came by to make sure we had a great experience. We started chatting. I dropped the business card like most business people do in that moment, but I was just so enamored by this food. I had these jalapeno poppers last night, and they were covered in this balsamic vinegar drizzle. And I'm not a big vinaigrette fan, if I'm being honest, but it was next level experience. I was like closing my eyes, just taking it all in. I was a little spoiled because my husband doesn't eat meat, so these bacon wrapped poppers were all mine, and he had this wonderful cauliflower thing. And Jackie, I know what you're talking. You know what I'm talking about because you would totally be eating the cauliflower with him. But it was just dreamy. And then I had a nice steak. It came with some garlic potatoes, which were cool. That wasn't my favorite. The mac and I mean, it was good. It was good, but the mac and cheese noodles were scratch made, sauce was scratch made. You could just taste the quality, and I ended up having this emotional experience while I was eating this food. Closed my eyes, did the whole thing, right? So it's just a great way to end the night. And then we stopped and we picked up this ring, and this ring, I'll share pictures if you guys want to see it. Let me know, but it just means so much because the first ring he ever gave me was this beautiful princess cut, and it was shiny and sparkle and just sat there. So, the white gold, I'm a big fan of silver and white gold. And so that was the color. And I was used to just watching it in the sunlight while it was at the stoplight. I like shiny. Okay. I'm a squirrel. But when I was pregnant, I would swallow a lot. And ladies, I don't know if you ever like pulled the ring to the end of the finger when you're swollen, just get it past the knuckle and it would sit there. I did that, and I woke up and the ring was gone. And so we start looking, thinking it fell off my finger at the middle of the night. We look near the bed. We were looking in the carpet line on the wall. I mean, we were really trying to figure this out. And I think I flushed it, guys. I was sitting in the bathroom, emptying my bladder like pregnant women do multiple times in the middle of the night. And I remember just like my head scratched, and I'm, just flowing, and I scratch my head just waiting for it to be done, and I hear tink tink. I don't think anything of it. I look around and like, whatever. I go to bed. It does not occur to me what might have just happened. So I flushed my business. It was gone, right? My bladder's empty. I'm going back to bed. Next morning it's gone, and I think I flushed it. So my heart has been broken because the ring I loved has been gone for a long time. We've replaced it. We went to the Renaissance Festival. We were going to get married there. It was kind of a plan in Arizona, big deal. And we got these cool matching puzzle rings. And you could take them apart, put them back together. They were all entwined, overlapping rings that did not come undone, but they did come undone. And if you did not put that puzzle back together perfectly, your ring did not work. It wasn't a ring. And so that was really cool. Love the circles, right? So we start there and get that. And then we take the kids to a museum, and my husband goes to the bathroom, washes his hands, takes his ring off to wash because it's a puzzle ring. It had lots of rings there. It would get wet, gross, whatever. Forgets it on the sink. Doesn't even hit the bathroom door before he goes back in to go grab it, and it's gone. Seconds. Not even a full minute, guys. Bummer. My ring, which was still on my finger, holding on, being the core memory, went up in a fire in Nebraska years later. So the rings have been going through it, right? And the last one we got, I was heavier at the time. And so it was a much bigger size than I wear now. And I could, get the things to adjust. And it wasn't. It's not the thing, right? And so last night, Valentine's Day, after the event, we went and got the new ring. And now it's a little bit of the puzzle, twisty, braided look. It's a little bit of that princess cut. It's sitting together. Not a big deal, guys, to a lot of people. And I didn't want to make the show about it, but it was a beautiful way to end the evening after Soul Man Live last night. So check that out. Now, let's get into the book, okay? Because I'm seeing my publisher down in the comments, Nicole and Chai Galindo. Hello, and Guy. And Guy. It's Aunt Guy. It's 6 a.m. Sorry, lady. But she's responsible for a few books. One of them that I'm holding currently, the most recent for me to be published in, was A Message to My Family. I am here, and you are my legacy. And I really was nervous to do collaboration books. Really, just partnering up in business is a risky proposition, right? You have to really trust a partner with your baby. And for me as a parent, it very much feels like a child when you start a brand, right? You're nurturing them from concept to fruition. Once it rolls out to the public or gives birth, right? Once you give birth and others can see it out there, you have to nurture it, keep it growing, feed it, like care for it when nobody else is paying attention and doing all the things. And to pick a partner to, bring up children with is a big decision. And I think equally so is business. So going into a book, knowing that history is written in these books, and we've referred back good and bad on these people later, right? And so I was nervous. I really was nervous, but there was something special about Nick and the way she moves in her network, her authenticity, the way she owns her mistakes, her, imperfections. And I love that about her because I like to be honest about me, right? I like to move like I have a perfect plan, but I also assess often, and I'm willing to tell people I don't always have it right, and please call me out if you see it. And I trusted her because she was so willing. So that being said, I was anti-collaboration book for years, and then all of a sudden I wasn't. And now I'm into books with the third on the horizon, right? But when I was deciding to read the books, this is new. Obviously, guys, if you've been following Coffee Chats with Melissa for a while, audio events were the game changer for me. I would be on LinkedIn. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, I would be on LinkedIn. They had audio rooms that reminded me a lot of those 90s party lines. If you've ever called in, everybody gets to kind of talk at once. No faces, just fun. You could share your ideas. You could yell at each other. You could do whatever you wanted, really. And my friends and I were over there doing this with intention to grow. And that's how I met all of these people, right? And so it naturally created itself this opportunity to harness the story on paper with friends. And if they weren't friends before, they have to be friends now. I'm staring at them for the rest of my life with them on the back of the book, right? And then you read their stories. If you're like me, I've been reading through these stories, and you just get to know your friends more. One of them that always sticks out for me, and I saw her face as I was flipping back to my page, because if I go one page too far in the book that I'm going to read today, I find Paulette. And Paulette wrote hers with the intention of it being read when she's gone by the person she wrote it to. And I don't want to give too much away because it's not my story to tell. But it was a new perspective. I don't want to say twist even, but it was a new overlap, a new circle to the Venn diagram of what I know about this human. It was insight to a secret conversation that she was having with her loved one. And I really love that because that's kind of what I was doing too, right? That was the premise of the book. And when I wrote this one, it really drilled into who I am and why everything happens. And starting a new YouTube channel, now that LinkedIn has done away with traditional audio events, they forced us to go to this live feed mode, which I got to tell you guys, I forget to add myself to the stage or I forget to unmute myself, right? It's a little learning curve, but I'm going to keep coming back because of the ripple, and we talk about it. And if you guys don't know, please go check out my stuff. Okay, documentthenact.com is the website. It's on the screen. You can see it. Go just learn who Melissa is from the business side, right? Who I am, read the testimonials, look at the service offerings. Cool, you can get data. But if you really want to know how Melissa got here, and I got to blame Aaron Gibson a little bit because I knew what we were going to talk about on the show was kind of who I am and why on his show. Go check it out. But it all comes back to this book. It comes back to the promises made. It comes back to the people who raised me. And so I'm going to share it today. Now, I'm going to have to get some water before we get started. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to try not to apologize if I stutter reading my own book. And guys, I'll probably get emotional because we're talking about my family here and at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. And I'm all gushy because yesterday was Valentine's Day and it was less than 12 hours ago that I was sitting at an event talking about myself with my friends, right? So first things first, we're going to get started. Tell me something about yourself today. What, old school audio, I would ask questions like, what's your favorite ice cream? What's your favorite cereal? Who's your favorite Sesame Street character? So I want to know what you do yesterday, right? Well, I'm going to hydrate. I'm going to take just 2 seconds of pause to chug some water here. Tell me, how did you spend yesterday? Were you at home? Did you spend it doing some self-care by yourself? You didn't need a loved one for Valentine's Day. You just partied with friends. Maybe you spent it with your spouse. Maybe you proposed. I had a customer from my day job get married yesterday alongside a bunch of others in front of the radio station. And so kind of neat. I wanted to be there, but I couldn't. It was too cold, too early, too many things. But how fun. What a story, right? To just be married with a bunch of friends at a radio station. So be right back. Let me know, how'd you spend yesterday? As soon as we come back, I'm going to start reading the book. Hold on. Ooh, see, that was quick. All right. So guys, the chapter, Document, Then Act by Melissa Ann Houston. A greeting, a hello, away from the window. That was what first came to mind when I thought of my great-grandmother, my Grandma Kurtz. Away from the window was what I would see as we drove away after a visit. She would wave and wait for me to see her do so, something she never forgot to do, and I was always watching for it. Let us make this our version of that wave, a place you can seek out whenever you need a friendly face to remind you that you are seen and loved, a place where, when something changes, you seek out for confirmation that the wave is there, in the window, waiting with the sole purpose of waving back to you. This book, this chapter, dear reader, is that wave. My legacy, the story told long after I have gone. The definition is loosely defined as the remaining impacts of event or action that took place in a person's life, my life, and those of the others in this book. It is our message to the ones yet to come, those yet to meet us, and those who will carry our legacy forward in their lives and actions. It is my honor to ensure a bit of my life is written down for those who come long after I've left this world. It does feel odd to imagine gifting you enough information within a 2,500 word chapter to make an impact that will stand the test of time. But here goes. As I write this chapter, I am a coach, a consultant, an internationally best-selling co-author, a podcaster, a live event host and co-host, a business leader, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a child of wonderment, still trying to figure out what I want to do next when I grow up. I do everything a grown-up should be doing, and I know that I'm no longer a child, but still feel filled with the same wonder and amazement my grandchildren hold. New ideas or concepts excite me like they did when I was younger. This is something I have become quite addicted to, and I blame those who came before me. As a young child, I remember 1,000-piece puzzles being thrown my way. 3 days later, they would be completed. Crosswords, word searches, math, and money games too. This hunger for knowledge and learning has been with me for as long as I can remember. When I entered elementary school, I was allowed to play in the kitchen while others had to learn the basics of colors, letters, and numbers. My grown-ups had encouraged knowledge exploration before school even began. I reaped the rewards in a chart full of gold stars and playtime while others caught up. It was a reward I didn't expect but relish and crave to replicate in all things. Let me be the first to finish the work so I can be the first to play, or some thought more appropriate for a 5-year-old girl. I just remember wanting to get the work done so the rewards came, which was why I drove in with gusto to any opportunity I was given. From a reading program that would provide free personal pan pizzas if you read for a set amount of time every night, I earned one a week, at least. Later, there was a drive at school to collect blue-lined bottle caps, and each lid would earn a donation back to the school. In 2nd grade, my mom helped me lead the donation drive by collecting all of the lids from bottles of soda they sold at the Mexican restaurant she worked for, Mata's, in Mesa, Arizona. The team there supported our mission, and soon we had shopping bag after shopping bag filled weekly. Eventually, I helped the school by selling chocolate bars for a fundraiser. The 3 top sellers were treated to lunch with our elementary school principal at a fancy restaurant downtown. From gold stars to candy bars, I wanted to prove I could do it and wouldn't stop till I had. I was in the top 3, and it was a delicious lunch. Legacy, but I didn't know it yet. While elementary school was filled with moving and instability, I remember my family as a whole unit. Birthday parties in the park, big family gatherings with games, kites, and cousins as far as the eye could see. It felt like a weekly event was held and a party for all was planned. Back then, my mom was working hard, keeping a tidy house, and we did lots of weekend trips to the river with a small grill, bag of charcoal, and a few hot dogs each. She baked, she made scratch foods, she also took us out to eat, and we spent many hours crafting all kinds of things. At one point in her life, she started to make keychains for a fundraiser that she had started for a coworker. The coworker's son had been diagnosed with cancer as a young teen, and the mom couldn't afford to cover the expenses. My mother and I spent hours making beaded leather keychains with different silver shapes on each. Black and brown leather, metal stars, boots, cowboy hats, and hearts looped through the laces and finished with a few plastic beads. These were neat and easy to make. We sold them at the local bars for $5 each. I do not know how much we raised, but I got to see my mom's heart in action for the first time in a way that didn't benefit our family at all. Or so I thought. Legacy. Being raised by a single mother meant I spent much time with my grandmothers. My great-grandmother, Grandma Kurtz, would watch me during summer when my mom was working. And I remember many nights curled up in my Grandma Morrison's cubbyhole, a place where no one could touch you, not even your parents, a place of safety from the outside world. Curled up behind her knees as she laid on her side, that hole was a place of protection, and it was one of my favorite places to be, even as I got older. This feeling of knowing that there was a place always available to me, somewhere I could seek when life changed, got hard, or turned completely upside down. It was her version of that wave in the window. It was always there when we needed it, waiting as a source of comfort, stability, and love. She was that place for me, and often I find her memories still are. Her voice echoes in my mind, and I rest in those moments still, just in a different way. Legacy. If you love me, you will learn this, she said as she handed me a cassette tape with a piece of medical tape on top that read, Patsy Cline's Greatest Hits, in her handwriting. I was young and standing in the apartment my grandmothers were sharing. Grandma Morrison had come home from work on a day her mother, Grandma Kurtz, was watching me. She handed me the tape and told me I could practice on her new radio, cassette, CD, turntable combo. I remember an eyebrow slightly rising on my great grandmother's face when she had said it, but she didn't speak against the idea and let it happen. When I returned, I knew the songs. As I got older, I learned to hit every note. When I got old enough to date and no heartache, she told me why Patsy had meant so much so early. When she was younger and amid a breakup, she was left with nothing in the bank, numerous kids, 2 beers in the fridge, and an old broken radio. Grandma cried till she couldn't, opened his beer and the back of the old radio, and worked them both till sound drifted from the speakers. The sound was Patsy singing her heart out, and Grandma had accomplished something she had never done before. Completed with nothing more than an urge and undeniable determination to fix what she could, that lesson was proof of the belief I still carry today. We are capable of anything we determine we are. I remember every time I play her songs. Legacy. Fresh fruit was a luxury on the income my mom generated. Typically, we ate well, but it was not the most balanced of diets. When I went to my great grandmother's house, she always had some fruit sitting on the counter, and I loved to see her prepping the snacks for us to share. One summer day, she cut a fresh cantaloupe. I remember the Tupperware bowl filled to the brim with delicious orange-shaped lumps of fruit, none matching the next, stacked and waiting to be devoured. I dove in with an aggressive attack, shoving each delicious morsel into my mouth and letting it hydrate me with every bite. It was the juiciest melon I had ever had, and I was quickly making it disappear while I sat on her lap. We were meant to share the snack, but I had forgotten out of pure joy. If you want it that badly, you may have it all, she said flatly and with a tone I had never experienced from her. I immediately saw her disappointment when we locked eyes. The fruit in my mouth turned sour, and I realized my mistake. I forgot my manners and wasn't sharing. I learned a valuable lesson that day. Legacy. When my great-grandmother passed, I was in 6th grade. She passed away in her home, in a hospice bed placed in the living room, surrounded by those who were caring for her. And I was sleeping in her room, in her bed. When my mom tucked me in to bed, I asked her to wake me if she went. We knew it was coming, and I didn't want to miss my chance to see her one last time. Early the following day, I was awoken by my mom pushing the hair out of my face. "Missy," she said with a softness I had never heard before. I opened my eyes and immediately noticed hers were red and wet. She was gone. Grandma Kurtz had said, "If I die, smile for me." I have gone to heaven and known no pain and no sadness. So many times before that day. She must have known for some time she was sick, but I remember her seemingly healthy sitting in her chair telling me this over and over again. Every weekend it felt like a lesson we should have completed and moved on from, but hadn't. Grandma Kurtz knew and wanted to prepare me for the loss long before it happened. I knew what she had asked of me, and remembering her lesson, I smiled and took her hand as she walked me to the living room to see our Grandma Kurtz one last time. With my mother's hand on my shoulder, I told Grandma I loved her and how much I would miss her. When I reached out to touch her hand, mine shook. It paused midair and had a quiver that I couldn't control. My young 11-year-old mind had hit its limit. Tears came silently, and then my mom's hand came in from behind me, covered my hand, and helped me reach for her one last time. My mother was so strong in that moment. I had no idea her best friend was gone. I had no idea the one human who supported her unconditionally had just drifted away, and now she felt alone in a filled room. My life was shifting, but I didn't understand how much. Legacy. Life changed often after that, and the mom I had always known started to slip away. I do not want to make this a negative highlight reel about her. This is an informational snapshot of what happened next. It would never encompass it all, good or bad, but so much happened in quick succession. I know she did what she thought was best, and I love her despite of the following, and hope you will too. Her boyfriend was arrested for molestation, Child Protective Services, a prison sentence, and mental health issues, and her having less emotional and financial support meant ever-increasing chaos in her children's lives. It had a ripple. Lack of professional help and lack of two incomes meant I was homeless for the first time not long after 7th grade began. Life was offering challenge after challenge. Victory and victim was written. Legacy. At 16, homeless and working numerous jobs, I dropped out of high school to care for my ailing grandfather Kurtz. Excuse me, my grandma Morrison's father. He had been sent to her for care, and she was already working full-time as a caregiver to make ends meet. He was a stranger to me, and having divorced my great-grandmother years before I was born, living in Michigan my whole life. Why would I volunteer the remainder of my high school career for him? I craved stability, but more, it was her love for him. Her mother's too, who once loved and devoted her life to him and never remarried. They loved him, so I loved him. Grandma preferred not to speak of family in fractions or ties. You were family or not. If you are family, you show up for each other. You help each other in times of need. I left high school and my dreams of graduating to help my family. He passed the year I turned 18 on December 31st, 1999. It was just after midnight in China and became the year 2000. I was already 3 months pregnant with my first child. Life shifted once again. Legacy. Grandma, what do you want me to do? She, the strongest woman I'd ever known, was breaking down before me. The truth is, I don't know what chaos had ensued before that moment. It could have been a plethora of things. Someone being sent to jail or prison, someone in need of rehab or help watching kids because they were going. Maybe the mental health of one of her children. It could have been a financial strain for all. It could have been a simple flat tire that was the tipping point. I just don't remember. The why is lost, but not what she said. That echoes inside of everything I do every single day. Her words may not be quoted below precisely as spoken, but it went something like this. Set a new standard for this family. Show them there's a better way to live. She said with a firmness in her voice that I knew meant business, yet spoken so softly it almost felt like she needed me to promise so she could breathe again. No pressure, just be the change. Be the change she needed. Be her legacy. Be the one to make it happen. Well, Grandma, I'm doing it. Documenting your words, acting on them for our family, setting a new standard, showing them the way. Thank you for trusting me so much. My legacy is that of a grandma's girl, your honey girl. Legacy. Dear reader, please remember you will write your story either way. Pick up the pen, own the narrative, be kind, love your family wholly, and document the acts along the way. Make sure you turn the music up and sing your heart out even when it breaks, especially then. It was Patsy Cline with Grandma, the Judds, Garth Brooks, and Winona with my mom. Now it's them and Pink, Miley Cyrus, Lady Gaga. It's Norah Jones and Post Malone. It's Jelly Roll, T.I., and Disney soundtracks. Each has their role. They make me sing and dance and reminisce. I promise it will all work out just as it's meant to. Grandma Kurtz left me a plate with an eagle soaring on the front, high in the clouds, with gold trim along the edge of the plate, and on the back it read, "They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Isaiah 40:31, Bible, NIV. Find faith, find passion, find fun, but most importantly, find out who you are in this lifetime and do it with an intention worthy of writing about. I'll be here with a wave watching you go. I hope you find comfort here and find your own way to soar with the eagles during the time you're given. You don't know if that is a little or a long time, so take care of yourselves and each other always. Love, me. Bio. Melissa Houston is an internationally best-selling co-author 2 times. A coach, consultant, and business professional focused and committed to helping others. Her passion for personal and professional growth is evident in her work as the cultivator of dreams and motivator of human capital. Melissa works with fun, passion, inspiration, and actionable tools to help people act on their dreams and expand their visions. She describes herself as a little bit of Lisa Frank, Betty White, and Google in a blender, bringing creativity, experience, and resourcefulness to her work. She is dedicated to helping others build their networks and gain skills required to elevate their careers and lives. As a host of numerous LinkedIn audio events, she specializes in coaching, consulting, and connecting her network while making the journey enjoyable. Then my website, Document and Act, and then my LinkedIn bio is there, guys. So listen, life changes quick, right? Audio is gone, and this was just published a few months ago. But the ripple's there. Where I started, the information of why I wake up and do the things. It's because I made a promise to a lady a long time ago. It's probably 18, right? 19. It's a lot. I'll be honest, it really is a lot to just kind of process through as an author, co-author, somebody who wrote their story down on paper to share with the world. It's not the easiest process to dive into the first time. I'll just be honest. Because writing isn't hard for me, right? I do content. I've written poetry as a kid. Victory and victim both start out the same. It's up to you how it ends. The quote was hinted to in the chapter. That is something I wrote at 16. Very not okay. Sitting on the side of the road, contemplating life choices and options I had in front of me. Wasn't great. But I would go back to journaling or writing or poetry or reading. I love to dive into others, right? And so to sit down and really try to harness the energy of what I would tap into my whole life to keep going. In spite of not having, the things available, some of the stuff we talked about, right? Resources weren't always plentiful around my house. Options to heal weren't always easy to access. And so I had to do a lot of my own. And that's really what the premise of Melissa Houston is, right? Document and Act is more than just a cute little term for a good to-do list. It's my life practice. I wrote it down. I assessed it. I contemplated. I felt like Edgar Allan Poe sometimes, right? They were doom and gloom. I got sent to the counselor's office because I wrote a poem called The Enemy from Within. And the first line was, tonight I live with all the death created by the enemy within me. And I was watching other people's addictions. And I was writing it from their perspective without them knowing. I was trying to understand who they were. Right. And so when I got sent to the counselor, and I'm sure I have this somewhere in my boxes and my storage somewhere, right? And if I can find it, I'll bring it and read it, because I think it just speaks to a young girl, junior high aged, right? Trying to understand an addict's mentality and how they could move the way they'd move. And I think it's important to get perspective. I wish I didn't have to try to garner it at that age and for those purposes, right? But it really comes back down to what I say every week. It's not something cute that I just created to sell a message or to be cool on the internet. It's a life act. And excuse me, I'm really choked up today, but mostly because I think my sinuses are acting up. So sorry, guys. But it's just something that I really think everybody should try to do. Even if you don't go and all the way to publication and get it out there and put it on, in a book format, just having that notes file, like Felipe says, he loves to live in his notes folder for things. You can go into a Google file, you can go into Outlook and create a Word doc, right? There's a million ways. You can email yourself. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But just writing it down, processing, tapping into what's bothering you when it's bothering you, understanding it, empowers you. And even though I couldn't change my situation, being able to understand it helped me process, right? It helped me not make it about me, because if you can understand what's happening around you isn't your fault in those moments, especially as a youth, it helps. And so lots to tap into there, but I don't want to forget the comment section. So let me come over here and say good morning to some of you guys. I'm also going to sip of my water again. My gosh, you guys are lighting up the comments today. I don't even know where to start. Let's go all the way to the top. Okay. Oh, hey, David Pushkin's here. I love it when David Pushkin shows up. How is the reading, David? I know you'll tell me. Is my audio okay? Nicole's here, of course. I've been seeing her blow up the comments. I know she's heard my story. Erin also had heard my story. Both of those humans got to hear it early. I learned a lot when I read out loud to others. That's something else I highly recommend, even if it's just you reading to yourself. Take it into that private space. Once you've written it down, read it out loud. And it's amazing what your hand will allow, but your mouth and your ears stumble through. Or when you read it off the page, you're like, oh, did I really write that down? Did I? Sometimes it could be this magnificent goal of I'm going to be a millionaire one day, and these are the 57 steps I have to get there. And that's, whoa, did I really come up with that amazing plan? Sometimes it's just like processing the breakups, processing that letter. You know, have you ever written a letter you didn't send, but you did it to process your stuff, right? That's the same. And so no matter what you're going through right now, write it down. One of my favorite tools to give to people is the Venn diagram, right? It's not mine. So I just like to share Venn's idea and concept, but it's two circles overlapping. If you don't know what that looks like, think about like the MasterCard logo. They have that on lockdown. It is trademarked. They're the ones who own it. So good for them. But what it is just trying to figure out information, get it sorted, and then figure out what's in the center. Because for me, the center is the action point. I call it the seed. If you look at a Venn diagram, in the center of that overlap, it is very much shaped exactly like a seed. And so that's your growth spot. If you're a high schooler, you want to go to the NFL, the first circle is high school football. Second circle is NFL football. You figure out what they have in common. Practice, training, discipline, good athletic ability, but you're also looking at maybe good nutrition, right? Maybe they require a GPA. I'm so glad Jackie said, can you hear me? Gosh, I got to work on this. But anyway, so if you can Venn diagram, who am I now? How do I move forward? You can quickly move from the high school team into the NFL career if you can see a path. Anything you don't have in the center is a good to-do list on the left to get rid of, right? That circle in high school. Maybe you're living at home with your parents. Maybe you have a junker car. Maybe you have a million things you want to change. You can get rid of that. That's an actionable to-do list if it's not inside the overlap. Same thing with going into the NFL. Maybe you don't have all of it yet, but the more you can grow into that circle on the right, the bigger that seed gets, the more you overlap with it. So you just work more circles in. Just get the stuff done. Start working out. Start eating better. Start sleeping better. Start making practices happen so you can be seen by the right people, right? So simple concepts, but that's what it is for me, the Venn diagram has always been easy because it's science-based. You can't really emotion Venn diagrams. You can process emotions with them. But circles, dots, bullet points, data, really hard to get upset by if you're willing to face the truth, right? So it's just a nice way to get in. I wish we required like the Venn diagram in these government leadership moments. Like, all right, you guys on this side, you put your bullet points down. You guys on this side, you put yours down. Put the stuff in the center you agree on, and then we'll argue it out. Because if we could just have a debate go that way, I think America would be more informed, and we could genuinely understand what they're talking about and who's on what side and where it goes. So I use this in relationships, right? If you're moving in with a partner and you guys are arguing about whose couch to keep, whose photos, we've talked about it before. You just kind of like, well, whose bed do you sleep on most? Who's got the more comfortable bed? Who's got better towels? Who's got better dishes? Who's got better whatever it is, right? And you move those nice things into the center, and then you just have a few things remaining to sort out. And when you've already agreed that their couch is better, why would you argue about the other couch? You don't. So no matter what you're trying to do, this is something I highly recommend. And I am trying to just highlight these comments. Guys, look at how many people showed up. Also, if you're interested in joining, I will have you just ask in the LinkedIn DMs. I'm going to look on my cell phone, trying to multitask without accidentally closing this chat. So, two devices, which never really had to happen before. Okay. Never really did. LinkedIn, you're making my life harder. But I'm not mad. I'm on YouTube also now, right? We're capturing content, we're repurposing it. Are you following me there? Last I checked, I had 10 followers on YouTube. We just launched it this week. I would love for you to be one of them. Also, you might get to see my face more. You guys kept telling me you wanted to see me. That's where you're going to see my face. Joke's on you, Felipe. That's how you're going to find me. You got to be on my YouTube, which he's followed. You can also find Art Careers, Chaos, and Coaching over there. He has been back building this stuff, and I love that. I really love it because that's something that I can go back and listen to, and then I can like snag content and tell Felipe when he's wrong and then show him proof. Right? Isn't that nice? Felipe, are you excited? I can fact check you now. Is that going to be wonderful? Okay. So anyway, guys, I think getting back to the book, the legacy, the YouTube, the all of it, the reason it's really exciting for me is my kids can listen to this. We had that conversation before, and I think it was in a room with Felipe where he was talking about having that content there. It could have been others too. So if I'm forgetting a moment with you guys, I'm so sorry. But just knowing that if I'm gone and my kid's having a hard time, there's going to be that YouTube channel of knowledge, right? Of, oh, mom said play Patsy Cline in her book. I forgot she said that in the book. Let me go play her favorite list, right? I have Spotify playlists for my kids to be able to find because one day they might just want to listen to mom's music. Right? And I think everybody should think like that. What are we giving to our family? I know even the ring we talked about, when I look at this ring, it is I'm going to get emotional. It's every memory I've had of the moments before it. Right? It's the Renaissance. It's the first Christmas together where I was digging into my very last box and I was like, I thought we talked about a ring. He said he liked me and we were going to do this thing and maybe get married one day. And I thought, oh no, because we talked about my favorite ring and then it was sitting at the bottom of the box. Alicia Keys, A minor, and boom, there it was right below hers. And just all of the memories tying it in, that's important, right? But then I think about the same concept of all the memories of childhood. You know, being in the car, and I almost tortured them a bit. Like I got to say we, because Dad was totally in on this. But we would play that we're going on a trip in our favorite rocket ship, Little Einstein's theme song. I would play the hip hop version of it, like the remix version, every time we went on a family trip. And we would try to do a once a week family outing on Sunday. And so it was just how we did it. And they would do the countdown 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I would just kind of speed up in that moment. The rocket ship would blast off kind of thing. And it was great. I want them to hear that song and think of the moments, right? When I think of Father's Day in our house, I think of knowledge and children focus because every Father's Day with my husband has been about the kids. I always want to make it about him, right? Some fathers, no offense to anybody listening who overlaps with anything I'm about to say. I'm not judging you. Everybody has their own way to play, but this is my husband's way. He takes them to the Kool-Aid Museum so they could go learn about the history of something fun for them. And there was a dinosaur museum attached to it in Nebraska, but Nebraska was the birthplace of Kool-Aid, and our kids got to learn it that day. We took them, like I said, with the puzzle ring earlier, when he lost his, it was in a museum in Arizona where we went mining for gold. And I had done it as a child in Mesa at the historical museum. They taught us how to pan because gold is a big historical part of Arizona and what made it great back in the day. The gold boom, everybody coming in, building up Tombstone, that was all of that, right? And so being able to take them, having the fake gold to go home to, having the kids elbow to elbow with their siblings and even cousins. We made it a whole family event. That's cool. This year, we already know what we're doing for Father's Day. I just read in the story about how much T.I. and Jelly Roll and Disney and Post Malone and Taylor Swift and, or not Taylor, I didn't say Taylor, Nora Jones. she's in the brain everywhere these days. But we're going to Posty and Jelly Roll this summer. That's going to be my daughter's first concert, and that's a Father's Day moment to be able to have his favorite artist, my favorite artist, our daughter between us, listening to the songs that play every day in this house, right? And so memories, legacy, ripple, it's all here. And I think that's part of this YouTube is the when they miss my voice. If I'm at work and they just want to listen to me, but they don't want to really talk to me, because I've ever done that where you're like, oh, I miss my mom, but I don't really want to talk to my mom right now. But man, I miss her, but not really talking to her. I'm not saying that's your relationship, but I've lived that moment before. And so, just having an option, having somebody else's kid. My mom wasn't always the parent for me to be able to talk to because she was my problem. And sometimes it's not easy to talk to the person that's creating that emotional ripple in your life or offering the concerns you have, right? And so I would go to other trusted grown-ups, other people's parents. And some of them are still so people that I care about tremendously, right? Heck, I lived with a boyfriend's family, and right before my husband and I got married, we stopped in to say hi to the mom. We drove all the way to a different state for the night to go do a dinner, and it was great. And then we popped in to say hi right before the wedding. That's unique, right? But there's a ripple there that maybe I could be the person somebody else's kid is hearing because they can't talk to their parent, but they're like, okay, maybe I should go. Maybe I can sit here and draw a couple circles and figure out what I think and what my mom thinks, and maybe we could talk about it if I show her, right? Because I didn't have that tool harnessed yet when I needed to explain things to my mom. My mom and I struggled to communicate for years until I grew to the point where I am now. I was on LinkedIn. I was doing big things. I had my Spotify created. I was doing my podcast, coaching. I made 5 figures in one day on the internet. That was really cool. Got to show my mom that life. I hadn't made that much in my first year of employment as a parent, and I made it in one day. And so to be able to have that and communicate that, and in spite of, and tell her I remembered all the positive things, and remind her the reason that I feel like I try to be the mom I am is because of what I saw in her first, right? And so just keep rippling. But what if? What if me saying my mom wasn't perfect, but she was still my mom and I love her, is going to help somebody forgive their parent? The half family situation, right? Love your family wholly. I can't stand some of my family sometimes. And I'm certain you guys are going to giggle or probably feel that in your soul too. But they're still my family. And as imperfect as we all are, when we come together, right? And I wanted a reminder of that too. My family has started to fall apart. Not everywhere, but COVID changed things, right? It created separation. We were supposed to kind of take some breaks from humans. And I know that had a ripple in my life. And so I want to bring that back. I want the cousins, the siblings, the family I don't always talk to be reminded of the stuff that was really cool growing up, because we forget, right? It's easy to stop talking to your sibling until you remember that for like a decade, that was your best friend. You could be punished the room with that person and you giggled because you're like, okay, mom, yeah, send me to the room with my friend. And we're so grounded, right? At least that was my household. My little sister and I would find ways to stay busy with each other. She would draw on my back with markers. We would give each other tattoos. When my mom found out we were doing that and she was mad because we were supposed to be punished, we used lotion. We would just like make this lotion layer on there and then draw on the lotion. And when I had to guess what it was, there were so many moments. One time I put stinking Orajel on my eyelid as a dare and it burned. It was weird. But these are moments that when I giggle and I think back to these moments of my little sister and, the arguing, the fighting, the other stuff that happens, it starts to look a little less important, right? It balances it out. Humans make mistakes, and I'm not doing this because I'm trying to preach some message to my family, but I'm preaching it to the world. We all make mistakes. How long do you hold a grudge? How much of that do you need to let go of? How much are you not processing yourself? And then it's a weight when you don't, guys, because I didn't realize how heavy I was until I started talking to my mom again and we started fixing some of those issues, right? So the documentation, the writing it down, the getting your story on paper, even if it's just to process, there's so much value there for me. And I'm hoping you're hearing it. Something is resonating for you to get into action, even if it's just a, hey, these are the big things in my life that made me me, even if it's not detailed, right? Maybe you went to school, you moved 5 times, maybe you dropped out of school, maybe you graduated early, maybe you were military and transitioned every 3 years. I don't know. Whatever it is, though, write it down, see what happens. Because so much of what we do in life is forgotten once it's done, right? When I consider Venn diagram, history versus now, how many books seem to be written in history, right? It seemed like Edgar Allan Poe, William Shakespeare, all they did was sit there and click away. And they didn't have a typewriter, guys. They didn't have a keyboard. They had to actually pen and paper, and they didn't even have automatic ink. Some of them had to dip a pen every 5 words. And somehow they did it anyway. And then I thought, well, maybe that's a lost art, right? But that's not true, because then when I published with Nick, she told me there's Nick dropped the fact. How many books are published every day or in a week? What was that fact? Because when I heard it, because becoming a bestseller, we were watching numbers, right? I'm going to be honest with you. That's part of it. You got to watch your data, like Nick said. You have to measure progress. I love that. And anybody who coaches with me knows every week we're in our numbers. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure it out. What are we up to? But when you get into it and you really just assess what you're up to and you write it down, you might be harnessing things you don't realize. You might be figuring things out on the go that you didn't even know were sitting in there, because you're tapping into a different part of yourself when you're writing. Truth be told, when I was a kid, and I say kid loosely, I was 16, 15, 14. But when I was in my English class and I had to write by assignment, I remember going, okay, I got to write a poem. And I would start the first sentence and then I don't remember anything. I really would lose who I was in that moment. And then all of a sudden it felt like I'd snap out of it and I'm finishing the last line. And then all of a sudden I reread it and it was almost like reading it the first time. I recognized the words. I remembered combining a couple of these together, but when I sat there and just reread it, it was different. And I think a lot of the co-authors in the book, talking to authors who have written, we all feel that way in some way. You kind of just let your brain get it out. And then giving versus receiving is a completely different brain function, right? And so I think that's the why. I could be wrong. If you know more about brain and what I'm talking about, please drop the facts, right? But I think that's why. And I think being able to release the power of control in your brain, to get out of that authority mode of defining what's going to be said in all ways, right? To plan and plot. There's something about writing that just is free flowing for me. It's like the ocean with words. They just come and go. I can't even grasp it. If I grasp something, maybe there's that one rock that my foot barely touches and I can just grab in, anchor in for a second to get stable, catch my breath, and then I dive back in and I get lost in it. And I love that. There's something intoxicating about being able to just drift away while you're in your office, while you're in your house, while you're in, heck, I know people who said they wrote in the bathroom. I was like, wouldn't it be nice to, like, you're just sitting there contemplating life, doing some work you don't want to be doing, and then you get to just disappear somewhere else and just not be there. Imagine you wrote every time you got upset. Just wrote it down. Every time you got happy, right? I've seen this on Pinterest. I don't even know if it's out there really anymore. But one of my favorite pins, one of my very first back in the day, was the gratitude jar. And it was for the marriage planning, the wedding pin board. But the day you get married, you start this memory jar, and every time they do something sweet, kind, whatever, something cute, you put it in the jar. Write it down and put it there, and at the end of the year, or anytime you get in a big fight, you can go in and dig through the memories and remember it's not all bad. And I've loved the concept. I haven't done it in that way. I don't have a jar, I have a planner, right? There's different ways. I use social media now. I like that other blue platform, the one that they say LinkedIn is not. I like it because it gives me on this day memories. It does, or it gives me memories every day, and it lets me see what I've been up to. It's a slideshow, a reminder, a refresher on to-do list formerly there. I like to go and be accountable to myself. So I will, even if I set the post to personal, private to me, I will say, hey, you decided to write a book today. And then a year from that day, I'm going to remember. It's going to be the reminder of this was that moment for you. And I think it's so profound to be able to reflect back and see, oh, wow, that was just 12 months ago. Oh, wow, that was 3 months ago. Nick, how long ago did you decide to open it up to all the other authors for the first trilogy? Because the first book, Felipe was in it, the People First professional networking platform. It was going to be one group of people, I believe, and then Nick created the trilogy because so many people were in. And when she expanded the offer, I was like, me, please, me, please. But guys, that wasn't even a year ago, I don't think. So screenshots are another great idea. Like Carolyn, I see this right here. I'm going to highlight it real quick. Carolyn says, I try so hard to write things down. When I go back, I can't remember what I was thinking. It's like a completely different person that wrote it. Maybe add some context. Hey, you had just stubbed your toe and you were thinking about how much clutter's in your house and you don't want it anymore. Because honestly, that's happened to me. And my poor husband, when I have those moments where I feel like my house is too cluttered, I'm like, all right, let's throw everything away. And we don't, but we do. I really like, oh, I'm going to overhaul the whole room and flip it upside down and get rid of anything I don't love right now. But in that moment, if you know yourself, and this is what's cool about the documentation process, is you can take a screen grab of the thing that made you want to write it down, and then you can make it a digital note. You could take a picture of what you wrote and have it right next to it. You could even say, hey, Bob made you upset because he forgot your favorite sauce on your burger. You tried to tell him, and there was a breakdown in communication, and we fought. And the moral of the story was Bob upset me, and this is why. That's okay. But let's say, because I've done this, right, where I write it down and I forget what I was thinking, talking about, whatever. When I come back, what does that mean today? Because honestly, maybe you were giving yourself a note for the future you didn't even know you needed, right? Things shift over time, and what mattered at that moment doesn't matter now. Example, maybe you say, hey, I need to get some milk while I go to the grocery store tonight. And then somebody says, hey, I don't want to have cereal tonight. Can we make soup? Sure, what kind of soup? I want potato soup. Well, great. I have potatoes. I have this. I have that. Oh, I need cream. Oh, cool. Just get the cream because we're going to go out of town. We don't need the milk now, right? That's an update. Now, if I wrote down on the list milk, and I didn't remember why I wanted the milk, could I? I could get the milk. If I wrote down cream, Bob wanted soup, I remember why I swapped it, right? Simple, small. It's not a perfect example, but give yourself clues. Or tell yourself what you were feeling in the moment and why it mattered to write it down too, because sometimes that's it, right? If I was like, hey, I was with Nick, we were talking about goals, write down book. That would help me remember maybe there's a future book coming. If I don't know what the book, like future book, if I just wrote that down without Nick, I'd be lost. Well, whose future book? What book? If I don't remember future book, but I have Nick's name, I can call Nick and go, why did I write down future book with you? What is this book thing? Do you remember? And we can laugh, right? And maybe that moment is going to be like, oh, well, yeah, I told you I had a coming book, but now I have 5 books. Which one would you like to choose from? You never know what it's going to be. So just don't be scared to tap back in, right? When you have a problem and you understand that, oh, the solution I've applied isn't perfect, adjust the solution. You don't always have to buy new pants. Sometimes you just have to take it in an inch, right? You just have to fluff the cuff. You got to do something. Get a belt. Doesn't mean overhaul everything. And so if it's not working, assess the problems as you grow. Nothing's going to be perfect at all. But being able to figure it out for yourself, being able to know what you really want, it's going to help others help you. And so getting clear. I know it sounds silly and it happens a lot and people talk about it all the time. But really, isn't that what you do before you take a trip in the car is you get clear on the path? Or at least you put it into a GPS who's clear on where you have to go so it can adjust for you? What if you said, hey, Google, I'm going over here, and then you had to make a left turn, but it didn't make it with you? What if it didn't adjust? Doesn't make sense, right? We wouldn't value it if it couldn't grow with us and shift as we shifted. So same thing with your to-do list, your notes, your messaging. Reread it. When I read this book now, like I got through it actually more successfully than I thought I would from an emotional standpoint. Maybe it's too early for me. I dove right in. I didn't get into it too much. But the first time I read it to my family, my husband and daughter, I was cracking my voice. The time I read it to Aaron, trying to get through it, I think we both were. Nick was like, oh my gosh. I remember these moments. In 10 years, I don't know what that is going to be, right? By that point, and David Pushkin said I was a great reader, and thank you, David. But, I might sound like a trained actor doing my book at one point because I want to figure out that rhythm rhyme. I'm going to get the habit down. It's going to be easy, but it's going to feel different. Not because the story is different, not because the meaning has changed or necessarily changed, but I have, right? And it will apply or look different in a decade. And so revisiting what you used to believe is important too. I think annually we look at, goals and we do our New Year's resolutions. I think businesses do their annual stuff, right? We have to assess our data and look at where we're growing, what's not working. If you're smart, you do it even more often than that in a business setting. But how often do you go back and read your old planner's journals? Before you just toss it out and grab the new one, do you flip through and see the things you wrote down didn't get figured out? What about the people you met? You were so excited to meet them, so you wrote it down, and then you guys got busy and forgot to circle back. That term, we all hate, the circle back. But it matters. Follow up. Making connections and then doing it. And I'm not perfect. I know there's a bunch of DMs to answer you. Yes, I did see your DM, Gregory. But I have a ton of them. Right? And he sent me a screenshot of Aaron's event last night, which, by the way, just in case you're curious, that's all it was. But I was live on Aaron's event, and now I have a screenshot from Gregory. And in a year, it'll remind me that's where I was on that day at that time. It's kind of cool. Now, when I first met Nick, I met her in an audio room, I'm certain, right? I don't know if it was hers or mine. I don't know if it was a friend's. It could have been a million of them because there's so many circles that overlap between her and I in our circles, right? And even more so these days, but there was a ripple there. And I don't remember exactly how it was. If I wrote it down, I met Nick this day, whatever, I would have a resource and it would be such a cool story. And guys, if you're moving with intention, like you're like, hey, one day I'm going to write the book. One day I'm going to write a book about my time on LinkedIn or a business or my networking or whatever, personal story, and you want to talk about your friends. These are the things that I like to write down because I keep saying one day I'm going to have my personal book, my book, just me, about me, life, business, whatever, right? It's a goal. But I'm not going to remember the dates. One of the things that used to give me so much anxiety when I would watch television is when the cops on Law and Order or any of these shows would be like, where were you on the night of? And they throw out some obscure date. And I would always put myself in that position. I'm like, I have no clue. I'm going to prison. And I was on the couch. It was a TV show. I didn't do anything. But in my brain, I'm automatically like, I have no idea where it was. They're going to arrest me. I don't have an alibi because I don't remember. And so it's funny in a way, but also it really does matter to know where you were when it happened, when that moment, that light bulb turned on for you, when that connection. I wish I could pinpoint exactly when I met Jackie, right? We're doing the Emotional Women this year. We're going to be working together. We have so much overlap. I know when we started coaching together, I know when that happened because she was in Arizona and I was like, oh no, we have to talk. We have to talk because you're in my hometown. I'm going to tell you where you got to go eat, some of the cool things. And now we're doing this thing. It's been over a year of knowing her and collaborating with her on her tripping with Jax, talking about her travel, talking about all the stuff, right? All the things we do respectively. And now we're doing it together. And look at this. This is going to be so good. But 10 years from now, when we're talking about the journey and we're sitting in a different place and it looks a lot different, do we know how we got there? Will we remember that time? Do we have the date of the first time she was on my show or the first time we did the show together for Emotional Women, right? It's going to matter. These are the things I want to document. And so maybe when we started, it was some hard stuff, right? It really was. But maybe that's the point. Let's talk about the hard stuff so we can get into fun stuff. It's still hard. The Emotional Women stuff is not going to be easy. I know, Jackie, we do look cute as the Emotional Women. I love that. I love the faces, guys. And I'll be honest, I created this, but I told Jackie, do you have any faces? Do you have any faces where you're like just in your emotions? And she went and did an impromptu photo shoot for me. I just went through pictures I had done on the internet, which I loved previously because I'm honest, right? Like I share, I'm having a hard day. That was the eye drop, my tear. It was right there. It was, I'm trying, I'm doing it. And I was talking to myself mostly, right? Just remembering the day where I pushed through anyway and got it done. But we got a lot of stuff going on as humans. We have a lot going on in the background of life, right? The world is unsure what it wants to do right now. And it's hard to lead if you're not stable emotionally. And so processing that, right? What makes us emotional? Why are we emotional? How can we assess? How can we fix it, right? Even the notes. Oh, I love taking notes, but then I don't remember what I wrote down. Cool. How do we fix that problem? So I'm so excited that Jackie and I have shifted into this, working with businesses, working with people who are transitioning in big ways, right? Overcoming some huge obstacles. We'll get into that. For sure, I think it's important to dive into the growth that came from harnessing my story on the internet, to opening up on LinkedIn in a way I hadn't before, which I talked about in the first book that I helped co-wrote with Nick and the others, right? The People First. We talked about how it started and what the intention was here. And then all of a sudden, something inside shifted. I was like, I'm going to go public. I'm not going to do word of mouth anymore. I'm just going to start telling them. And I'm going to get aggressive. And I'm going to tell the world what I offer. And I started posting and I started talking about it. And I went into audio events and I got really raw, guys. And I was so grateful for the 2 hours not being recorded because we tapped into stuff I had never heard professionals talk about on LinkedIn. I'm not saying I was the first because I don't know that for sure, but I know I was early to the game to talk about things that weren't sales and marketing, right? And I miss that non-recorded approach for you to get that time to vent without playback, talk about the issues at work without your boss stumbling on the recording somewhere, right? And unfortunately, that is not in existence. I don't want to go over to the other platforms right now. I'm still building out what I'm building, and eventually I'll evolve again and grow some more, add another circle, another platform, or whatever. But I'm a little busy. So we're doing this here. And the people who need the privacy, you got to reach out. This is not a pitch, but if you need their privacy, that's what the coaching is for. And I hate to have to do that. LinkedIn made me, right? But unless you're willing to share your story publicly, that is the option. Another option is to go to Clubhouse, guys. I just read yesterday in the DMs that somebody said they went over to Clubhouse because they missed audio so much they couldn't stand it, and that's where they went. And I think that's cool. I had talked with Felipe. He had been on Clubhouse a long time. I even sent people with Bobby Umar, right? He's over there doing it, and they had been doing it a long time also. I think it's cool, but it's not where I am. It's not who I want to talk to. With the Emotional Women, we want to talk to businesses who need to figure out how to calm the chaos of emotions inside to get operations up. We want to talk to people who, I don't know, I mean, I don't want to overspeak, but who need that help to process and transition and understand and really dive in, right? On LinkedIn, I want to help people grow their businesses. I want entrepreneurs who have that spirit inside, who want to get paid to do their passion project, to reach out. I help get a plan. I help figure out what the tools are going to be. I ask the questions to make you figure out what the tools are going to be. I don't pick them for you. Sometimes I make recommendations, right? But then I also assess your why. I remind you when it gets hard, no, you said this was for Bob. I want you to go look at Bob's photo right now and tell Bob you're not going to do it. And I call you out on your accountability, right? I keep you motivated. But the why comes back to, for me, being the change, setting a standard. Grandma said family is family. And we talked about it on Soul Man Live last night. But family means LinkedIn to me these days too. Lots of you call me little sister. I've heard sister fall out of a couple of your mouths naturally. Some of you have nicknamed me with or without my permission. I have people who tell me things, moments, share moments with me before some of their family knows. The effect, the profound heartstrings that get pulled, like it's just, it matters a lot to me. You guys trust me with that, right? That you guys bring it to me, that you have over time with the audio events. And now we're here and it's harder. And that's why I don't mind doing so much of the solo show right now. We are going to shift back into bringing guests on. I want you to know I'm still open to having business leaders come on stage, talk about what you do, talk about your why. But just trying to figure it out because I think it's new. And what we've always talked about is not always comfortable publicly, streaming live to all the platforms, right? Once it's on the internet, it's there forever. And I'm aware of that. I'm also trying to figure out, I promised somebody who I want on my show that they could come on my show when I stop leaving myself muted during the event. And I haven't done that yet. Today we did it again. So need to put a little sticky note up saying, hey, unmute yourself after the promo video. Because for some reason, I just think I'm not muted. I don't know. Anyhow, so if you guys have ideas, if you want to be on the show, let's talk about it. Where do we take it now? Do we keep doing the hard-hitting stuff publicly? If so, what topics? Because it would probably be me covering it solo for a while until somebody volunteers to be the one to share that hot, hard-hitting thing. But I also don't want it to be the shock value show, right? I don't want to always be in the hardest parts. This is fun and passion. What do you love? I've had people who work for like some of the biggest global brands out there that harness imagination and fun every day. They put it into movies and content and shows, and they're a global brand and they have years, and we celebrated that human. And then look around our network. How many people do you know that are passionate about a thing? How many of those things overlap with your business, whether it's marketing, sales, branding, Canva, which I hated and now I live in, right? What are those things you want to learn about? This is the stuff. If you're going to be here, if we're going to do the show, if we're actually going to make the ripple happen, get you writing your story, you got to assess what you want and why you're doing the things. So the next step for Melissa is a new book. I don't know how much you guys have been following Nicole, but she is going to be doing another book this year, More Than Our Diagnosis, or More Than My Diagnosis. Nick, please correct me, right? But I'm going to talk more about my backstory. I was diagnosed very early on. And honestly, as long as I can remember, guys, I was asking my sister to either help me with my back, like pop it, walk on it, rub it, massage it, whatever. Like I was always achy, even as a young person. And by the time I had my son, he was 2, they were giving me like a decade of walk time remaining. They said that with the arthritis I had and the pinched nerve and all the things I was having issues with mobility because I was heavier and I couldn't move as much. They said, you have 10 years to walk. And now this is 2025. So 23 years later, I'm walking every day for like 12 hours a day. And I'm still in pain. Don't get me wrong. It hurts. And I feel the ache. And sometimes I'm not sure if it was the chair or me creaking when I rise. But that's part of the story, right? Being more than what they said. And I got to give credit back to Grandma again, because she said doctors are practicing medicine. It's in their name. They practice medicine. They haven't figured it out yet. And I kind of giggled, but it's true, right? It's all testing, assessing, data, analyzing. Everybody's different. And so there is no one size fits all approach. We've talked about that too. And it comes back to watching doctors. If they can't give one Band-Aid to solve all bleeds, then why would any other business offer be able to stop the bleed with one solution, right? So getting into that, talking about the diagnosis, talking about pushing through in spite of. Same thing with PTSD. I don't know if you guys know this. I was diagnosed after a house fire. There was trauma before, though, and so we don't know chicken or egg at that point, right? But I was high on the markers, and for a long time, I was triggered when I was riding in a car because I had a really bad car accident and I couldn't even drive. I had to lay down in the car, let somebody else drive, and even then, feeling the brakes was trauma. I would be upset. There was a lot of unkind words coming from the back of the van to my husband at that time about slowing down, and he wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just triggered. It took me years to get to the point where I could drive comfortably, then years to let anybody else drive me at all. And I still struggle sometimes depending on the conditions. If people are being stupid, if I know it's a high risk night, New Year's Eve, more collisions, more drunk drivers, I don't want anybody else driving because I'm a control freak, and my anxiety feels better if I know that I'm the one in charge of the mission, right? Military mindset, I can't help it. I wasn't in the military except ROTC in junior high, and that's not real military, no offense, but it's not. But it was still the mindset that I carried. I listened to the people who were teaching me who had been in the military, and I believe. So I always wanted to be the first one in, assessing, leading, making sure that I took the risk out of the way for others. And it's just, it never let go. But man, that was hard to get through, right? Imagine trying to be in the back of an Uber with that mindset. It was not going to work. Then I became a cab driver. Like the cab driver is why I had the accident. And so even when I was being careful, even when I followed the rules, even when I was recorded on the camera, I still couldn't allow myself back on the road for a while. It was just hard. That's not true today. But it took time to get there, and pushing through and not hearing, hey, you have PTSD, there's no real cure for this, you're just kind of always going to be there. Okay. But I don't take the medicines. Some need to, and I'm not judging if you do at all, because I think there's a lot of help out there for people. But there was a lot of stuff that I did inside to remove myself from triggers. Another one, guys, shockingly, was Walmart, and it came up last night. We used to break up every time we went to Walmart. And it was my anxiety in a grocery store. As a kid, my mom didn't always make ends meet. We'd get up to the counter. She would have all the groceries, and we would go over. And they'd have to unscan the items one at a time to get us under the thing. And so for me, at the checkout, even today, even sustaining well, as soon as they go to run that card, I can't breathe until I see approved, because I'm nervous. You add that with the triggers I had of the PTSD still being kind of active, like when you guys have been recently triggered. I don't know if you've had it, or anxiety. It's easier to get rattled again. The further away from your rattled moment, the easier it is for me to abstain from them, right? To stay away from them. I can release the energy as I feel that vibe coming in. I'm like, oh, no, 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 that's negative. I'm not going to dive into that. I'm going this way. But before, if I was already shaken and you start shaking some more, there is no unshaking the shaken, right? And so mindset comes back to it. Walmart, we get in. My husband's trying to be helpful. He's always trying to help me out because he knows I go through this. And we'd end up fighting because his help was too much and it was causing me another layer of contemplation. We would break up. And you know what? We don't do that now. We went to the store successfully last night, and I joked when we were at the store that, hey, we don't do that anymore. But there was rules. One, we stopped going to certain stores together for years. And we just took turns. And predominantly, he would go to that store. Just to be honest, I had a really bad experience at one. And it had nothing to do with him. It was after we had stopped having these chaotic moments, mostly at the store. I went in alone, though. I was doing a late night run. And it seems like this retailer that will not be mentioned now is kind of short-staffed a lot, right? So I was running in. It was almost time to do the late night flip over, which I get. The retailer, I understand. But I got stuck between a couple of other shoppers. And I say stuck as in I was in the aisle. Somebody was really tight in behind me. I couldn't really even shift back and forth on my feet because they were so close. And the person in front of me, equally kind of close because this person behind me kept moving in. So I kept kind of trying to grab ground and it didn't work, right? So I'm sandwiched in. The guy behind me keeps counting down how many minutes until midnight. That was giving me anxiety. I don't want to hear a countdown. It's like Mario, right? If I hear the sound, the countdown, I'm freaking out. I know I'm on a deadline. I'm a gamer. I don't like countdowns. It's always bad news when the timer's going. And so my anxiety's up. I'm here. And then the alarms start going off. Somebody tried to steal a TV out of the back door. And so the fire alarm in the whole place, the whole thing's lighting up, blinking. I'm stuck in the drive or in the line. The manager is like, hey, go over here to self-checkout. And I'm like, why would I go to self-checkout? I've been here for like 30 minutes, so she could do the work if I wanted to self-checkout. And I was like, no, I'm next in line. I will wait, because I was frozen. It was pretty bad, guys. And it seems simple. It's just a store trip. I had a few things with me. I just had to go in and check out. But the chaos in that moment, my mindset back then, I could not move. I couldn't. And so knowing now that I don't have those moments, I'm not seeing them as often, right? Not at all. Do I still get a little bit of anxiety in like a big setting when we went to go see wrestlers and there were hundreds of people in the same room in the same line and we're all right there? Yes, I like my personal space. I wish I could have a 6-foot bubble that I just walked around in all the time and, like a gerbil. Just think plastic ball. I want one of those. And it needs air conditioning and a chair for when I want to rest. But I also love to move in with people, right? In my own way. I love this platform because you're not in my space. You're not leaning in too close. Sometimes people don't, even when you're hanging out in person, they don't understand personal elbow room. I need elbows at all time. If I can't do mom elbow hip stand and spin in a circle, you're too close. And so parameters, boundaries, things for me that I know today that I implement. If you move in closer and I start feeling bad, I will look at you and go, hey, can you back up? I can hear you from over there. And I've learned to set that boundary. So let's get into boundaries real quick, right? Boundaries are important for these things. If, especially as you're growing, trying to figure out what's next, figure out what's important to you, you have to move in the ways that will help you. If you know you're going to end up going to a store, getting upset, having a ripple that will affect your personal life or your internal system for days. And that's what would happen. I would be upset for days because if I fight with a boyfriend or a husband, you guys fight with your person, it's not instant. that it goes back, usually, right? And so that would have a ripple in my life. If I get triggered and I get anxious, being able to be re-triggered for the next 24 hours, there's something about the system. I don't know what it is. Somebody who's smarter than me can tell you. But I could not keep it toned down. That small thing, the spilling the milk, people crying over spilled milk. I think it's because they were already upset the day before about something else. It's never the milk, right? The emotional response was never the milk. And so having that moment of removing yourself from the things that upset you, trying to prevent it, taking turns doing the thing instead of together, it helps. I love cleaning. I don't like to co-clean unless everybody's moving. I don't know about you guys. Co-working, I love to co-work. If you get on a video Zoom with me and we're supposed to be doing stuff, I will get it so much done if I'm on video and you feel the same way about co-working. That's a beautiful way to offset, right? Maybe not in person because maybe you breathe too loud when you write, or maybe your pen's scratchy. There's a lot of things going on with misophonia, so maybe in person doesn't work. But I can mute you on my laptop and we can co-work, right? We could be on a phone and we could talk and not see each other, and I could be doing my dishes or I could be gardening. Lots of stuff. Okay, let me dive back into these comments here because I could go all day. We already know this about Melissa. What about when a relationship on LinkedIn suffers a setback? How can you rebuild it to be stronger? Oh, okay, I love this. First thing is why. I always go back to the who, what, where, when, whys, that simple elementary school concepts like the Venn diagram that worked for second graders, right? And I talk about marketing to the 5 and 75-year-old in the room because if those two humans can hear it, everybody in between should be able to decipher what's said. And so break down the why for a 5-year-old. Why am I having this setback? What happened? Who was involved? Write it down. Where did it go wrong? How did we get here? What do we do to overcome it? What can I do? What would I expect from them? Talk about your hopes, because honestly, I can expect a lot, right? If I fight, I'm going to pick on Nick because she was next in the comments. If I fight with Nick, there's a million reasons to never talk again. We're both strong-handed individuals. We're both a pain in the butt if we want to be. We're both off our rockers. All due respect, love. But if we get mad, we mean it, right? But at the same time, if I figure out that, hey, this is my publisher and I love who she is and I know why she gets frazzled sometimes and she knows why I get frazzled sometimes, and we're not perfect and we know we're imperfect because we've talked about it and that's what we overlap on anyway, first thing I would do is go, Nick, I'm imperfect. Did you know that about me? And she's going to be like, hell yeah, I knew that about you. Because she's mad at me for being imperfect. But it would be a conversation starter. And I wouldn't come in and go, Nick, do you know you're imperfect? Because as much as I know she would say yes, in that moment, that's not the conversation. Do you know I'm imperfect? Let me own my part. Now, am I always good at this? No. That's why you got to assess and write it down. When it's really important, you got to take time sometimes, right? Sometimes it really helps to have another person. And with, like, I'm thinking of Jackie. When I think mediation, when I think about having two people on opposing teams or sides or mindsets or situations coming together to figure out how to move forward, I definitely think of Jackie. That's her day job, mediation services, right? She helps with reentry stuff. So she's talking with sometimes victims and offenders, right? That, imagine trying to make that work. But if you do it with the mindset of we're coming to the table to get clarity, to heal, with an intention, right? When you set the appointment, I just want to let you know how I'm feeling in this moment. We don't even have to fix it. There's times where I have said to best friends of decades, since childhood friends, hey, you know what? I'm sick of chasing you. You're not responding. I don't feel loved in this moment. Get back at me when you want to chat. Could I have said other things like, I miss you, can we talk soon? Sure. But was I feeling a certain way and had to tell my friend, hey, I think you suck right now, and that was probably the best way I could do it? Yeah. And you know what happened? My friend reached out. It's about how you approach it. Now, that friend is somebody who can handle me going off and saying it different ways. And I probably have in the past. The most recent version was kind. But you have to communicate with the person where they're comfortable when you're approaching them, right? We can't expect people to always meet us where we are. And it's not easy, especially if we're in our emotions, because get back in here and love me. I don't know if you guys have seen the meme, but that is like my husband's theme song when his wife screwed up. I'm like, no, wait, come back and just hug me. We can just hug this out. Poor guy. Felipe, just send flowers. But reality is, even me, right? Like sometimes I'm just like, no, I didn't mean to put my foot in my mouth. Come back. Don't be mad. And they're like, no, I didn't like that. I'm going to be over here for a minute. And that's okay. So setting boundaries for yourself, but also allowing them to set them, allowing them to not be ready to talk to you. And that's really hard too. Because for me, when somebody's not ready to talk to me, it makes me feel worse, which this is a very selfish mindset. Let me do the selfish first because I'm human first, right? Coaching later, human first. The emotions come up and then my mind starts assessing. So human first, I'm like, no, come back. No, I don't want you to feel angry at me. Let me try to word vomit to fix it. And we call that quicksand moments in this house, where the more you move in this moment, the worse it gets. The more you try to stop it, the more you're sucked in. And so shutting up is really the best thing Melissa can do in those moments, even if it's ended with like, okay, I know I screwed up. I really wish we could just hug it out, but I'm going to be over here until you're ready. That's okay. And so coming into it, know what you want to explain. Know what you're hoping. You can even tell them, hey, I hope we can come to a way to move forward here. I hope we can still be friends once this is done. You have to set the intention, right? We've heard that in a lot of coaching rooms, and there's a reason. Why are we communicating? Because I can get into a room with you guys and we could talk about anything for hours and never talk about the thing. So if there's something going on, reach out and tell them, hey, I screwed up. Hey, you probably don't want to hear from me right now, but I miss you. Hey, I'm really sorry I did X, right? These are all allowed. I think when we stop doing those things, and I've seen a lot of it, right? The internet has not brought out the best in everybody I know. And I haven't always been the best on the internet, I'll be honest. There have been times where people local to me had said things and I was like, oh man, let's just go to the local gym. Can you sign this waiver? We'll put the gloves on. We'll make it legal, but can we just talk about this in the arena? Because people get ugly. And then I realized, no, you have to meet them there. And so if you feel like ugly's happening, stop it with you first, because it's the only one you can really control ever. I have children and they say I'm allowed to be in control of them, but it's funny. From like the age of 3, they decided to do what they wanted the whole time. And I think I was kind of living in an oblivious mindset prior to that. Maybe 2 started giving me hints when they could verbalize, but babies always did what they wanted, right? Always. You could change them and immediately they get dirty again. You're like, I just gave you a bath. I just changed your diaper. I just did this. Humans don't change. They're going to do what they want when they want. And sometimes their body needs it, whether they like it or not. Right. And so figuring it out, if the grown-ups around you present like a newborn, they get their stuff on you, even though you have changed and helped dress them and you've helped them, become the human they're supposed to be for the world, and then they get you messy. You can assess why and help them to not do that again. Or tell them, hey, get that together. You're not allowed around me until you're not spilling chocolate sauce on my white dress. Or you could just not say anything and kind of just back up. Sometimes a pause is okay without saying goodbye, right? It's one of those things where it's like, hey, you offended me on the internet. I'm leaving this group. And everybody's like, hey, this is an airport. You don't have to announce your departures. Sometimes don't even say goodbye. Sometimes leave it unsaid until you've assessed, right? Doesn't mean ignore people. It doesn't mean don't assess or do. You can say, hey, I'm taking a pause. I'll be back. Hey, I'm going offline. I'll be back when I'm ready. I think reacting versus responding is something we have to look at. And in a tech world that moves as quickly as we do, I mean, heck, guys, I can't even go on camera right now if I wanted to because I moved so quickly in Canva one day, click, 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 edit, having fun, moved into a camera thing, and I accidentally deleted my camera setting because I was working on the back end and streaming stuff. And I wasn't reading the screen effectively, and I deleted my camera. I don't even know how it happened, but I clicked too quickly and it's gone. So, my own fault. I got to go install the stupid driver for the camera that's living inside the computer that it forgot that it has because I clicked. I assessed the problem. I moved too quickly. It's my own fault. Nobody to blame but myself. But I know the problem. I also know the solution now, right? When it comes to humans, it's a little bit harder because while you pause, like the computer's not mad at me. Well, it doesn't have a camera. Felipe is so mad at me. He wants me on camera, but computer isn't. And so that can wait because when humans are having a bad day or stuff's going on or life happens, it moves down on the priority list. And so that's the other thing I would say, not just boundaries, guys, but prioritize based on need. Would it be cool to have the camera working? Sure, for sure. Especially with the Wakabumi program that we do, the entrepreneurship. We do, I like to have the kids see me. That's the one place I like to come on camera more often, but now I can't. So it would be cool. But do I think it was more important to be in the places I was this week instead? Absolutely. Absolutely. So figure out what you're doing, what you could maybe pause to assess some of the bigger stuff. If you're running into a lot of arguments in your life, it might be time to bring in another person to help you assess what's going on. Because, no joke, when I'm the most unkind or frustrated or irritated is when somebody hasn't given me protein for breakfast. No joke. Charles Graham, I'm going to tag him in the comments or somebody else can, but he's a buddy of mine that would work with me on background screens. And he knew that if by 9 a.m. I wasn't making my omelet, I was going to be a grouchy boss lady. And so he's like, no, you go make your omelet and I'm going to take care of things. And so, it's a running joke. Even when we talk now, he asked me, did you have your omelet this morning? And I told him, no, I was using the price of eggs. I'm not buying eggs right now. But that's what you need is people that can hold you accountable, right? The people who can assess. And if you're seeing a lot of ripples in your life or seeing something that doesn't really align with who you say you are, have somebody tell you what they're seeing. I think it's important. Like, I'm grumpy. Why do you think I'm grumpy? Heck, my husband saw me yesterday grumpy. I was talking about being on Aaron's show. We had a chaotic day. My husband's got some car trouble. We had a beautiful day in the end, for sure. But it was just a nonstop day of we got to get a lot of stuff done. And so I was stressed out and I was frustrated and I was trying to figure it out. And I'm like, And Aaron's like, what's going on? And I told him, I'm frustrated. And I owned what was happening. I need to be quiet. I need some personal time to get where I'm at. And I did. And I got myself together and I had time to really assess what was going on and why I was feeling that way. And I just didn't like video. I don't like to be on the internet and video. And I know that. So that was part of it. But then I was a little tired. I had been running all day. I wanted to just like have my coffee and be lazy. And that's okay. It didn't happen that way. And honestly, it worked out way better. But in the moment, I knew what was wrong with me. And I hadn't really had food, right? I hadn't done all the things I tell myself I'm supposed to do ahead of time. And so having friends who are like, I see you're frustrated, let me do that. That's cool too. I also have those people and I tell them the truth when I'm not bubbles and glitter. It's not always perfect. It is fun and the moments come and go just like a roller coaster of ups and downs. But I hope when I get in these moments, my ripple into other people's lives, mindsets, or whatever isn't a negative one, right? I hope I can say, hey, it's a me problem. Heck, if you ever have a customer service experience, that's the best thing you can do to the customer service reps. I called a phone company, and this is forever ago, but we were having some cellular issues. I had a new device. I had to send it in for repairs back in the day. They made you ship it out. They sent you a loaner, and then they would send it back once it was fixed. And we just had this really bad experience. And I called customer care and I was like, hey, listen, I'm mad at your company. I'm not mad at you. Can I speak to your supervisor? And I just kept doing that until finally they said, there is nobody else. I was like, great, here's my problem. And I ran it down the list. And I got to be honest, every person I spoke to before then was so grateful that I was honest. Like, hey, I'm so mad and you aren't qualified to help me to this extent. Like, I know this by default as a business person, I knew this. So I just kept going to the person and didn't upset the lower level people. I didn't have to yell at everybody all the way up. I didn't have to treat them poorly. I didn't have to be mean. I just said, hey, I'm really mad at your company and this is not a you problem. Can I speak to your supervisor? Yes, ma'am, please hold. Right? And so make sure you're assessing it with the right people too. It only demand what you can get from the person in front of you if you know they can offer it, if they're willing, if they owe that to you. The customer service rep did owe me help. And I knew in my own assessment that they could not. They could try and they, if they wanted to, that's fine. But when I started to explain to the one person who was like, well, what's going on? Everything that was wrong, they're like, you're right. One moment, please. Because it was more than one circle, one problem, right? Lots of things went wrong. It was domino effect. And so how many things are going wrong in your life that are not that one person's fault, but maybe they catch some of the splash? Right? You just dive into that pool and you just cannonball because you're so upset and you just make everybody on the sidelines drenched. I don't want to do that. The intention was to set a new standard, something good, something positive. And I have been fiery and I'm not perfect. And, there's a part of me that does the catch me outside. How about that mentality of like, okay, if you want to meet me outside, ma'am, I would love to escort you to the gardens. Let's go. But I don't want to be that human in everybody's story either, right? When I ever had to defend myself or get to the point where it was a quote unquote fight, not even physical, mental, emotional, whatever, I usually lost more than I gained. And it wasn't the story that I wanted to leave the humans with, because if I cared enough to fight, there was something worth fighting for in that moment, right? And if they were a stranger just being rude, we've seen these TikToks and videos and whatever of people just acting out. So a person watching stepped in. I've been in that moment. I will always be that person. So, you need an ally, you need somebody to listen and hear you and stand up with you because you don't feel safe. Definitely reach out. But I don't want to be a bully by default, right? I don't mind being there to fight with you, but I don't want to be a fighter as a profession. I want to draw circles and glitter and bubbles and stuff. What I love about bubbles is they're non-aggressive. They kind of just float and go with the flow. They definitely are prominent though, right? I've never seen a bubble float through a park where every adult didn't kind of pay attention. If they saw it, they followed along. It was entrancing, enticing, the colors, the fun, we have no idea what's coming next. Because bubbles just kind of go with the stuff you don't see, right? The things that move you and shift you without permission. Bubbles are like, cool, let's go left. Cool, let's go right. Hey, I go up and down. And they just float. And then when they reach something that they push up against, a park bench, some kind of equipment, there's that surface resistance. If you watch it for a moment, there's that hesitation. And being a human bubble in that moment, instead of making impact with the bench and breaking yourself against it, what if you just decided to move a little bit higher, float up, get away? And that's the difference between a human bubble and a traditional bubble, is we have the choice to float one way or the other. You can break yourself against whatever you want, but you're not a bubble once you're gone. Once that pop happens, something changes. And so if you're talking personal relationships and Venn diagrams and circles and overlapping and meeting in the center, how do you do that and come up against the surface and break? You can't pop the bubble and overlap. Doesn't work. Just ends up with more bullet points of regret, right? The splatter of the bubble on the surface, it leaves these little circles of, I once was a bigger bubble. And then they're just minute memories of what was. And that sucks, guys. Right? So figure it out. And if people have to be removed from your life, which does happen, not everybody is going to overlap forever. It does happen. Some people decide they do want to be less than a bubble, different than a bubble. They want to be the park bench. They want to be firm, standing, never shifting, never moving. This is who I am. It's in concrete. That's it. That's okay. Totally cool. That's your boundary. But just know that those bubbles trying to move into you are crashing against you. Right? And so you could do whatever you want, really. But when I look back on life and the choices I had, I grew up in a town where I could have done anything I wanted to do from a criminal standpoint, really. I knew enough people out there. Not that I was bad, guys, and I don't want to sound like this because I did background checks for a decade, but gangs, drugs, violence, theft, all of that stuff was right there in my neighborhood, at the mailbox, on the street corner, at every gas station. There was no way you missed it. And I chose to avoid it. It was at the family function. Most of the stuff that I had to endure growing up happened within a ripple, right? One sibling introduced another sibling to a party that they went to. And it seemed cool at the time. If you guys know, like if you have a spectrum of children of different ages, the oldest kid learns how to ride a bike. It's not long before the 2-year-old is also on a bike, right? And it doesn't matter if there's 2 decades between them. The next one teaches the next one, teaches the next one. And it also happens with bad behaviors. And so knowing that even your own family can be that negative aspect, can be the thing. I had to shift away from my whole family for a while. I had to leave the town I was raised in, get away from the community I was in, really overhaul everything, because even if I wasn't doing anything, even if I was a good girl, it was like what they said, oh, she's a good girl. That's how they let everybody know, oh, she doesn't do the thing. I was still so-and-so's niece, so-and-so's daughter, so-and-so's sister, so-and-so's cousin. And I stand out. I always have. I've always been kind of memorable, right? That's something I'll own. It doesn't hurt that I also have a birthmark that's prominent on my arm. And so being able to discern me is not hard. Once you know me as a child, you would know me as an adult by my birthmark alone. It was something that I really had to separate from the town to not be overlapping with the bad behaviors. And so, getting into some of the comments here, Rachel says, what if instead of fight, I am totally flight and fight, or wait, yeah, in reaction to one person or problem, how to break them. So is it like one person triggers you to do it every time? Because I would ask myself, what about this person does it? Is it the content of the argument? Is it the person's approach to the argument? Is it the situation? I'm only in their home when we have this conversation. I'm only in their business. They're my leader. I would assess what the power looks like in that room first, because the first thing you want to do is be in a neutral zone, right? Not be in anyone's comfort spot when the other's not comfortable. The next thing would be the topic. I think with parents, for example, my mom, it was so hard for us to communicate because she always spoke from a place of authority that my grandmother had harnessed with her children, where do as I say, not as I do. You guys know that, older mindset of children be seen, not heard. There was a ripple still there in that. And so the automatic respect of what I say goes with my mom was still kind of there. But at the same time, she wasn't always making decisions that I agreed with, or even the government laws would agree with, right? Agencies would agree with, that were meant to protect us. And so for me, I couldn't just do that. And so it was hard, because as I do believe I should respect my mom, and as I was raised the same, if my grandma said jump on one foot, you just hopped. And you said, what's going on, Grandma? Why am I hopping? You didn't ask why, you just did it. Right. And I didn't mind, because Grandma never really asked me to do anything quite that silly, but I always knew her reason. And if I asked, she would tell. With my mom, it was because I said so. And so for me, I couldn't be in her home to have hard conversations. I couldn't have her even be in my home because it wasn't respected. And that would upset me when she didn't respect my rules in my home the way I was supposed to respect her house. Right. So, coffee shop or taco spot, it's really hard to yell at people with chips and salsa at the table, I've noticed. And I joke, but not really. So, you find that place where it's neutral. Go to a library and have the conversation. By default, you have to whisper, right? Find the thing. And if it's something else, if it's a you thing, coaching, therapy, having a conversation with a loved one who loves you both, maybe can be that mediator who can see both sides and give you insight as to why mom keeps telling you the thing, or why they can see why you're saying that to mom, but mom's never going to change because this, right? Whatever it is, you have to assess the who, what, where, when, whys. If I could give it any simple advice, it's sort the data. Understand you. Tap into the hard stuff often, but tap into why you want to do the hard stuff first. And it's all hard when you start getting going, guys. It really is. Doing new things is not easy. Going to the gym, that's hard. Just getting up and changing your routine to get there and then getting on the machines and doing it. Could you imagine trying to do 30 minutes on an elliptical for the first time ever at a gym? No, it's not going to happen. I tried. I got like 8 seconds in the first time I tried to do this resistance stair stepper one time. And I was like, no, I'm going to die here. I'm stopping. And I went and I did the pedal bike. Later, after a lot of exercise, I got up to like a minute on that stupid stair thing. I'm not supposed to do stairs anyway because they're arthritis. But man, I really wanted to tackle that machine. And eventually I was like, some things are just not meant for me too. And there's a reason it doesn't fit. And no matter how much I try to push it, it's not going to work. And so maybe there's a reason you guys don't overlap. Assess that too. I don't know who it is. I'm happy to talk to you about it, Rachel. If you want, let me know. But I think it's important. I really do. And I think if you're constantly struggling with your people or your mindset or your behaviors, right? Because sometimes I get hangry, guys. And sometimes like when I'm cleaning, I'm aggressively cleaning. I don't even mean to, but subconsciously I'm just mad my hips hurt and I can't do this without pain. It has nothing to do with the people around me. But when they hold the mirror up or say, whoa, are you okay? And I see the eyeballs of my husband, like, oh, why is she so mad? I come out and I'm like, oh, right. So sometimes it's us too. Maybe we're giving ideas or giving waves off that we don't realize we're giving off. Because when my husband gives me those eyeballs, the first thing is like, why is he giving me those eyeballs? And sometimes it's like he's watching my eyebrow go at first because I'm like, why are you looking at me like that? And then I assess. Oh, I know why. Because I just like slammed the dryer door. I didn't mean to, but it was more aggressive than I meant because I moved it so quickly, or I was not leaning on both feet at the time I did it. And I kind of like was toppling at the same time I was closing and I had to gain my balance. That has happened, but it seemed aggressive. So, it's a lot. I feel bad I use my husband as an example, but this is what he gets for being in the room today. He's just front of mind. He's been hearing me talk about him and talk through this. And so shout out to him for letting me do that today. I love him. And also the ring, guys, I will share it with you, but it just feels nice to do what we're doing here on a Saturday, to come in off of the Valentine's show we did and to read the chapter, right? And to talk about my family and to just share. I want to get back to co-host, so I'm going to work on this mute thing. I am. And I'm going to try maybe one more read of the next chapter next week. We're going to talk about networking. And we're going to talk about growing on this platform and how I went from 1,200 to 12,000 in a year and how that changed my professional career in ways I didn't expect. And then I want a list of people who want to be on my show. So if you want to talk about yourself, your story, your business, reach out to me. For now, though, guys, I'm going to play out that song. This song, I don't know if you guys love the song as much as I do, but seriously, it plays in my head all the time. My dad loves it. It makes me feel good. And so we're going to go ahead and play that song right now. And I will see you next time.
through my window pane. Dreams of stars, now a faint refrain. Coffee brews and thoughts collide in this early morning ride. Wake up world, let's start the day. Insight flows in a bright array. Questions dance like morning dew. In this space, it's me and you. Coffee chats with Melissa. Every cup was a whisper. Conversations open door. Spilling thoughts forevermore. Ideas bubble crisp and bright.